Hey everybody, it's Aaron Norris with the Public Relations Society of America Inland Empire chapter, and today we have got Jon Burgess with Red Fusion Media and the Advertising Federation, the American Advertising Federation of the Inland Empire, for our very first Tech and Tactics Tuesday at 12 noon for 30. Tongue twister, but what this is all about, it's going to be 3 weeks in a row leading up to a final luncheon in Temecula where we go into a little bit more nerdy advanced topics on marketing and advertising. A lot more PR people these days are being asked to do some things that are outside of what they are normally forced to do, and with a specific focus on measurement and outcomes. There's some pretty cool tools out there to help us accomplish that. So Jon, thank you for joining us today. You want to chat a little bit about your background while I was showing the wrong screen this entire time. That's funny, but I'm going to hand you over the screen so you can chat it up.
All right, thank you very much. My background is that we have a long history in family marketing, and old man Jon Burgess started doing marketing management like 30, 40 years ago now. We've had Red Fusion for, gosh, it's just turned 16 or 17 years old now. So my background is mostly from the point of view of relationship marketing. That then kind of developed into digital marketing with all the website growth in the 2000s, and now it's kind of shifted a little bit more into I would say just the newer version of digital/relationship marketing, which is kind of the inbound marketing. And through all that, marketing hasn't changed too much. So if you're on and want to follow me, figure out who I am, just Google me at Jon Burgess. I better win. There was a famous, I guess there was a chess master who died recently, and he was taking up one of my spots in Google, but otherwise you should be able to find me. And if anybody wants to ask questions after this or you have follow-up, I'll be more than happy to help. So I had kind of taken some of the stuff I'd seen on the website, and we put it on here as ideas to chat about, and so I figured we can kind of go from there. Within this slide deck is my stuff I use for teaching at the University of Redlands or other seminars or even with clients, so I guess we'll just jump around as need be to follow with kind of the theme of this whole thing. So
okay, yeah, and I sent in the email that everybody got sort of a list that we wanted to cover today, and it's only 30 minutes. This is going to go super fast, and I'm excited because I've never seen the back end of Hubspot, which is really what I describe, and maybe I'm hopefully describing it correctly. It's an enterprise level marketing software that sort of provides a bridge between website marketing and email marketing. Would that be fair?
A little bigger than that, I would say. So it's the bridge between your CRM and kind of the sales pieces with the marketing pieces, and so within the marketing we have email, social media, landing pages, all that. And so really it's become a two-piece system where your sales team can have great information and leads, your marketing team can watch what's happening and follow your communications through different media outlets, and then it plugs into other stuff too. So I think that's the scary part. You mentioned in another question here about AI getting. That's the scary part. It's becoming so data-driven that if we're not looking at where data is coming from and obviously then where it's being applied to, it could be frustrating.
Well, in my experience, I launched a CRM. I was one of Microsoft's very first CRM partners for online. They're Dynamics. I actually got to present in Atlanta on stage with, I think it was VW. It was very, very cool. But PR professionals, I think one of the ways that we're so different is that, we're dealing with so many different publics. So, I mean, if you talk about like a nonprofit, you're dealing with the clients that you're serving, you're dealing with the board, you're dealing with government, you're dealing with funders. And a CRM system is a pretty cool way to track all that data for succession planning purposes, relationship management. And then the piece for the less robust systems is you don't have a way to get it out of there and to really track what they're doing on your website. And CRM systems, I'm excited to cover this because I think a part of it is just knowing what's available. And HubSpot has been teasing me for years. I wish I could sort of make it affordable for me. I have too many contacts. But
yeah, they're not quite ready to make it affordable to everybody. They have some new things which I can touch on. So how about we just follow this little couple questions and then we'll jump into the HubSpot? Is that?
Yep, let's do it.
Make sense? Okay, so technology, I think that PR people might not be aware of that. I can just kind of rattle off, we use HubSpot, we're a HubSpot partner, so I'm not going to pitch that too hard from that point of view. But HubSpot is kind of a industry leader along with Marketo, and so some of the bigger systems that might be at universities probably are using the bigger Marketo piece. which really is going to tie together your email marketing, your on-page marketing, your tracking, your lead generation. And so then from that, I think there's a whole new group of people doing this kind of tracking. Obviously, everybody should be looking at their Google Analytics, Google Alerts, all of that, especially for PR means. But the goal of what I think we're doing internally at Red Fusion is always trying to push people to landing pages. And I know aren't you a lead pages expert now,
Yeah,
Aaron?
I'm in the process of finishing my lead pages certification, but some people might not even know what a lead page looks like. How about I set that up so I can show people while you keep talking?
Sure, you can do that. So lead pages is one of them. We're trying to get people to landing pages and really get them to do something. Another that's within that same group is called ClickFunnels. I use a cool little plugin that is actually a HubSpot plugin called Lead In, and that's something that you can put on websites and get people to sign up for emails. We personally still use a ton of SurveyMonkey, and there's a lot of just WordPress plugins. All of them I use, kind of jumping into the next question, not for impressions, but really to look at what would be a click-through or a conversion. And so for all the PR that we might be doing for events or for whatever, I really think that getting into the papers or getting press is kind of icing on the cake. Generally, we're doing it with a real drive to get a click-through. And so those are kind of pieces that we have running. That runs through kind of the next question, the funnel marketing, making sure that we're following where people are going. So
Well, and to that point, I asked, we interviewed the press enterprise at our last luncheon, and there was a conversation about that. Like, I don't care about impressions anymore. As a PR guy, when I'm in the LA Times versus a local paper, I can see the data. So it's difficult. How do you measure success? Is it just eyeballs on a page? Is it click-throughs and visits to the website? Well, once they're there, how are you measuring success? What are you hoping that they're going to accomplish? Can we take it further as PR professionals, asking them to download a white paper or sign up to receive mobile updates? And that's the whole goal of this, is like, how can we start thinking more strategically to get us further, whatever our audience is, further down the funnel, and to show clients it's more strategic. It's not just about eyeballs anymore.
Yeah, and so how about I jump ahead in my little thing? We'll show some of the stuff we do. I show this to all my classes at the university, so these are things that we typically are looking at. When you look at what we would call strangers or people that don't know our website, our whole goal of marketing, communications, advertising, social media is to attract them to something. And the truth of all of this is that Google is getting so good at what they're doing, the attraction piece is becoming very specific. And so when we are attracting people to our customers or to our websites, we obviously then kind of think of them as visitors. I spend my time for most of our clients between this idea of converting and closing. And that is whatever we're doing, whether we're trying to get them to sign up for an event or get their email address or really kind of pushing them through this funnel. This is kind of the backbone to inbound marketing, which this is a HubSpot slide that I use a lot where it's really talking about attraction, converting, closing, and delighting. The good thing about public relations people is they are the best communicators of our whole kind of marketing advertising spectrum, and they can do all of these pieces, but rarely do I think they're looking at the data points. So that's kind of the biggest crux of this, is are we looking for data? And so if we're attracting through a blog, are we understanding how a visitor then becomes a lead, and are we doing things within that to track them and honestly ask the question, what's the value of tracking all of this? So that's kind of some of the pieces that we look at in setting up all these systems, because if the system doesn't help us through this process, then what are we doing? How do we know that social media is even working? How do we know that call to actions are working? Are people opening our emails? So
Right.
those are kind of some of those pieces.
I'm going to take the screen really fast, and I have to make sure I'm showing the right thing. Okay. Hopefully, can you see my screen now? This is
Yep.
leadpages.com, and I'll give an example to the audience of how I use this. So we do a lot of speaking engagements at the Norris group, and part of the problem is sometimes the audiences are so large and whoever we're speaking with has very small screens. So on the screen, I give them the option on the flyer that they've got in front of them. There's a QR code, which I don't think anybody uses, to be honest with you, and a bit.ly code. And if they do that, they can download the slides then and there and enjoy it from their mobile device. So what they do is they land, instead of going to the Norris group, and we have a mobile responsive page, but I don't want them to be able to do anything but download the slides. I don't want to confuse them. it's their sole purpose is for me to capture their email address, and so I send them to this page. So they hit the download presentation, they give me their name and their email address, and they're immediately thrown into my email list, but they also get the slides right away. So I'm providing a really interesting, good user experience, but I've just earned the right to also email them a follow-up with the slides in their email box. And this has been converting for me is capturing email leads. I think the very first time we tried this, we were in a room full of 400 people, and like 175 people did it that night. I was shocked. So
Yeah, sometimes those things just work when you set up right. And I kind of bring it down to the common sense. Those people were there to learn something from you. So they were obviously, having people in seats want to know what you're doing. You're now giving them a really nice path to walk them down what we would call kind of the lead to conversion path, so that you can continue to nurture those people. And so as we look at all these different things, how do we pull a interested party from a newspaper article, or even, gosh, they hear a radio ad or something, how are we pulling them into the next step in that process so that we're building relationships? And you're right, it is pretty cool when you get such a high open rate or click-through rate or lead rate, and then you're like, wow, we should do this all the time. So yeah.
Okay.
I went back to some other pieces really quick that we can touch on. I know that Mary and Don will talk more about mobile. I typically think that I'm not a mobile technologist at all, but everything we're doing is web-centric and mobile-centric in terms of that. And so one of the things I think all PR people need to know is that if you're not building mobile websites now, or your clients don't have mobile websites, you will start failing really quickly within Google. By failing, I mean you will just not show up over time. Google's already said that if you don't have mobile-ready experiences, they don't like you very much. And so I have some slides in here. You can quickly look at your site or competitor's site. Just go to Google and Google page speed. Within Google, you'll get to a page that should look something like this, developers.google. They'll run what's called page speed tests, and I happen to do this for class for the University of Redlands. I know they had a big change over their website recently, but what I wanted to show the students were what's the mobile experience of a university website versus a desktop experience. So there's a lot of these that you can run on your own websites. It will tell you what's right, what's wrong. You can pass that on to your webmasters. Some of it, like eliminating render blocking JavaScript, I know what that means, but I can't even do that. So that's something that you can pass on. The second piece, there's other places like Pingdom. Pingdom will look at how fast things load. Page speed in terms of physical loading is becoming one of the biggest things that you can do to improve your Google results. And so those are just things that I don't think public relations people are talking about technology in the sense that things have to be fast. We've seen really dramatic changes in some of our clients' website positions when they don't load fast. So,
well, this is obviously Google is stepping up with their AMP change, and for how this plays with public relations professionals is the whole Insta articles thing. So Facebook, I think it was just last week, just opened it up to everybody who wants to publish directly into Facebook. The problem is for PR professionals and marketing in general, you want them back on your own properties, but Facebook is making a play where they want you to stay on Facebook as long as possible. So do you or don't you publish directly into Facebook, but Facebook is promising a faster user experience than if they went off-site. So something that we're all going to have to start dealing with anyway. Uh-oh, did I lose you?
Google News specifically, and so that's just something where we've seen that become a bigger deal.
I'm back, by the way. Sorry about that.
I saw your picture pop up. Other quick thoughts about this kind of mobile get-in. It's over. I think it has finished. Again, everything needs to be mobile generated, mobile savvy. But the AI or artificial intelligence or marketing that can be done through computers is coming really quickly. I don't think people understand what Google's done with that world It's kind of a funny story, but the reason Google has self-driving cars is so that they can figure out how self-driving cars can teach themselves in terms of artificial intelligence. And what a lot of people don't understand is that that AI that has been put into cars that will not. And so I've heard it's as high as like the third highest piece of what determines a Google page result. So now we're already in the world where Google has given away certain authority of how they rate pages to artificial intelligence. That's a kind of a scary thing to think about. But it now puts us in a position as marketers or communicators, the only thing I can tell my clients and my team is not that we worry about keywords, we worry about, is this content expert, is authoritative, and would Google consider it, important? So it's kind of a big thing. That goes into why SEO might be gone. It kind of is gone. I don't believe in SEO from the old, let's make the page perfect, but today it's really, do you have expert content? And is that expert content going to be authoritative? And a piece that nobody really talks about, is it trustworthy? So that's a thing that we could go on for a long time about how do we make sure that sites have content that's built right, and secondarily, did you send really good content out to somebody else in the form of a press release where that other party gets the authority? And that happens a lot when you look at who publishes your press release first tends to get the authority of that piece, and so that's a debate we need to have. I don't know why PR pros will never make the C-suite. School, they don't have their analytics kind of class, and I think for PR people to understand analytics is really the piece that gets them to the next level. I tend to think from a marketing company perspective, I want to hire people who can write, and so those who have gone through communication classes are already well along the road to getting to the C-suite. Are you back, Aaron?
Yeah, I'm having a ton of audio problems, so if I drop off, it comes in and out.
Keep talking. Well, I saw this question, and you mentioned it somewhere or somebody else. I don't even know what CRO is. What is CRO?
Conversion rate optimization, so sort of talking more about the funnels and really defining what a conversion is for all of us. I mean, it's different for all of us,
Okay.
Is it, I guess for some people it is eyeballs on a press release, but for others is it going to be going much further and say, I want people to jump from the page, and one of the reasons we're interviewing Mary is for the mobile side, is, emails. I mean, emails are still some of our biggest assets, but can we get them to go to mobile and have the option to text people? I mean, that's a huge jump for customer service and relationship, but how do we do that? And capturing a number might be another CRO. But I've just been seeing this term get thrown around a lot, and with the sole purposes of really identifying and measuring success as it comes to a conversion.
All right. I was initially thinking it was like chief revenue officer or something. I think I think it's really important to look at that, but it's going to become a piece where the consumer, your target consumer, is going to choose the way they want it. And so that if they want to do, I think, an SMS solution or a Twitter solution, you have to be ready to meet them where they're having conversations. And looking at the group of people on Facebook versus the group of people on Instagram versus the other ones like Snapchat or all these other things, those segments are doing what they want regardless of what the other people want them to do. And so you kind of have to think about that from the sense of, are you building solutions that allow people to get the information the way they want? And email marketing, I love email marketing. It still works really well for us and our clients, so that's just one of those big things.
Well, let's show, we're about 10 minutes away from supposed to being done. I think we'll probably go a little over, but let's start playing with Hubspot to show exactly what we've been talking about.
I'll jump down to some slides just because I had them before we jump into their data kind of being driven from a Google point of view. We've done a lot of this over the years. I think most of the people should be aware they can get this kind of data. But within places like HubSpot, we get a lot of different pieces that start to give us specific data. And so I took this old slide. It's not that old, a few months old. Molly doesn't know that I tweet for her. She tweets out there. Ron doesn't either. We're able to manage things across all of our social media platforms and see what's happening. You can see in this screenshot we've done better than the month previous. We had 8 clicks on that particular one. And I'll kind of show you why in a minute here. We do real-time data collecting. Here's a thing all of us can use within Google. And so Google will show us some real-time page views, but within HubSpot and other tools, they're showing us a lot more on who the person actually is. I don't know if people know they can see their data in Twitter now. It's cool new functions that I enjoy looking at my Twitter data. The part that gets to be a little bit scary is that now we're getting IP addresses, and so HubSpot will drill down to the actual viewers of our pages, and I do have some live shots here in a second I can show you. But if they even come and touch our site, where do they come from? What are they doing? And then we get personal data. And so here's my mom and my nephew. My mom didn't know this picture was up, but she had come into our site. She had filled out a form, became a lead, and that lead was attached to her email, obviously. That email was attached to Facebook. That Facebook page was a page she had put in her Facebook account, and obviously that's public. So now I have a little piece of Molly, my nephew, what's going on, and a lot of other stuff. And so that's all on the HubSpot side of it. And then we get what I call, really live data. And so they have this thing called signals. It's been changed, and I think I'll flip over here. Here's our wonderful Twitter accounts. So you see these new live pages. The biggest things that are happening are really I broke these into different segments to see tracking. And so here's this tracking of my Red Fusion Media website over 2 years, and you can see ups and downs, and generally we get some downs in the summer. But my class didn't believe me about publishing new content, blogs specifically, and so I promised them I wouldn't publish any content since I started my last class, which it was in April, and you can see the pretty big drop there in just not building content. So that it becomes scary. I don't think it's a big deal because I get more traffic than I need in a lot of cases, but the thing that becomes important to conversations about execution are, where did it come from? You can see our site gets tons of traffic from Google, organic. We get a lot of referrals. Our social media, you can see, starts dropping down. I do a lot of social media, quite honestly. And if you see, that second column over here called contacts, these are physical contacts that have come in our database through a source. And for all the social media we've done as Red Fusion Media, we've had 1 contact in 3 years. And that's where it starts to change our decisions on how we do things.
And where you spend your money and time.
Exactly. Here's now our social media since I kind of cut off, and so I think that one that had the picture of Molly in it was about 3 months ago. Now you can see I've dropped my social media just effort. You can see that when I drop my effort, things like my followers have changed pretty quickly. Even though Ron gets a lot of clicks still. So we look at this data, and he doesn't know what he's doing again, and looking at what really matters, and to me, social media is 2 things. It's either authority, and that people are following us because we have something authoritative to say, or we're getting them to a page like our website. And so all of this stuff is trackable now on one platform. I purposely haven't opened my inbox, but you can see this is live data from multiple feeds. Here you are, Aaron, making a comment right on your site live. I could, reply to this right now and say thanks, and it's going to show up within those feeds. And so I have all of this stuff centralized. I have all these different people doing different things on different platforms.
Wow.
Yet at the end of the day, it's being sourced back to usable data, not just that it makes me happy that, Carl Dameron liked a picture I put up. So the reason
one of our members, but is this just Twitter, or is it?
It's any ones I want. I mean, I have Facebook and LinkedIn and multiple Twitter accounts in this particular feed. But the other piece that people don't understand is that I can monitor other stuff. And if I put you in as a feed, I could monitor your feed without ever going to your feeds. And so know that your competitors can watch you. And so this is one I just set up to look at Molly specifically and how she interacts. I could look at how Red Fusion interacts with people, and that becomes kind of pretty important.
Okay.
I mentioned live stuff, and this is where the Big Brother piece comes in. I sent you this email yesterday originally, and you can see, I think this is the yesterday email. We were having a conversation about this event, and here I know you opened it. I know some other people opened other stuff. Here's my good buddy Jacob Porter. Here you were a few minutes ago, 11:46, opening that same email in that thread. I know everything that's happened within this thread because I've tracked it And that becomes really important in terms of activity, especially on the sales side. If I was selling you, I had known you opened that, and now I call you and say, hey, Aaron, how you doing? And you would be like, oh, I was just looking at your email. And I'd
Oh,
say, I
let's role
know.
play. This is me. Oh, I didn't open that email. Oh, yeah, you did at 11:30 a.m. in Riverside. That's great.
And and that's the big brother piece that freaks out. This is obviously on my phone, so if people are looking at our sites um, and they're important to us, it's going to pop over on our screen. A couple other pieces that I think, we have a few minutes left here that are scary, interesting, are the companies that are now visiting our sites. And so from a sales point of view, these are live companies that have visited my Red Fusion site in the last few days. Not all companies will be tracked because they're not all identifiable, but if I was to target anybody in this group, Sandboards is here in Redlands, that might be a target I like. It says some pretty interesting things about these different pieces, and County of San Bernardino might be important. If I click on the County of San Bernardino, I can see everything we've ever done with the County of San Bernardino. I can see their annual revenue. Here's some emails that were attached to it. Here's some contacts we have with these things, and so it becomes pretty interesting from that point of view. The other piece then is a separate piece, which I switched it kind of quickly from people that have recently visited us to, here are 13,288 visitors to our website of all time. And these have all come to my Red Fusion site. And if I wanted to target these people, I have data on them that I could never get before. And this is through, partially because I have a HubSpot subscription that gives me this information, but this particular Mid-Continental Communications, I don't know who they are, what they're doing. I click on here and I see they're from Sioux Falls, and I see some other activity pieces that, what did they do? They came to our site a few days ago, actually today. They're on it like almost live right now. What they did, we've had 3 different visitors come in a few different dates, and so now I have pieces that help me drive my subject matter, what I might talk about, because if that is a real target I wanted it to go after, I'd have some power there. Within all this, I can filter it all down and become kind of very driven to my goals. And so when we kind of hop back in and just look at our live goals, what I do care about on our dashboard is not necessarily visits. I think people like visits. I watch it from a macro point of view, but I care about contacts. Am I driving contacts? Are things for my conversion rates working? If I've been blogging, which I promised my team I wouldn't blog, and so I didn't, I'll start blogging again. I haven't sent out any emails this month, but if I had email performance things, I could do that. All of that then ties back to your messaging and what's going on with that. And so that's kind of just
Wow. So this is tracking so many
look at
different
it.
metrics, including your top blog posts. So it's almost bringing in data from like Google as well?
Oh yeah,
Wow.
well, no, it's pulling it straight from itself, but it will cross-reference some of that to other pieces. So yeah, it is it becomes mind-boggling when you first look at it and go, how could I have all this information at my fingertips? And there's other programs that kind of do this in a smaller level. Even
And we
MailChimp and Constant Contact do that with email. So
Right, and that's like the cheap way to do it is they've got all the metrics. You can use it as like a very basic CRM system. You're at least in MailChimp, I see that you're able to take notes. You can segment the audience, but it's clearly not bridging. It's not a robust CRM, nor is it being able to really give you a lot of data on what people are doing on your website. Can you
yeah,
see, okay, if you send somebody an email, can HubSpot trigger different events? So if a new
sure.
contact comes in, you can almost send them down a workflow. If they visit this website, I know maybe they're a little bit further along and it will launch another email string.
Yeah. Yeah, we have lots of workflows that come through based on what we want them to do. So if then kind of statements, and we can see that our workflows get really small. So we have a channel disruption page, and 9 contacts have filled that out. And so if I needed to go back to that small group of 9 contacts and say, we know you've downloaded our channel disruption, here's another piece, that's where that nurturing becomes really important, because now we know that the web viewer has taken an action. That action is what I think is important as a marketer, not that we've branded, not that we've done a lot of outbound advertising or trying to get eyes on stuff. That's all important to kind of pull them to us, but it's the action that becomes the important piece to me, because it really goes back to Google. Google is so good at what they do now that they're getting you to a page right when you know it's there, And, I'm continually scared when I'm sitting at home watching TV with my wife and I type something on my phone and it pulls it up within like half a second that they know I'm watching like Downton Abbey or something. So
Oh,
I'm like,
yeah.
what? My wife is ruining my Google searches. But those are the kind of things that are becoming important to Google and me as a user. Thus, we kind of have to think about content as how can we get people to exactly what they want. If they didn't want that exact thing, then let's let them go for a while. We've made an impression on them, but maybe they'll come back, or maybe they'll never come back.
I've got two questions for you. Sue asks, can you set up automatic marketing through HubSpot? So that's all happening in HubSpot, correct?
That particular stuff is happening in HubSpot, but it could be in other places. It could be done in some of the smaller platforms. I'll call them workflows are coming through other pieces. I mean, I know with lead pages and ClickFunnels, and let's see what else is there. Infusionsoft, there's some automatic marketing that can happen. I'm pretty sure you can do that now with Constant Contact and with MailChimp. I think there's some things that when they do something, they then can do something else. And so it's really the thought process that if you get them to point A, do you really want them to go to point B? And how do you get them to point B? And so it's kind of, if they've asked for a white paper, what is the follow-up to a white paper? Is it an email? Is it, sending an internal email to your team to call them back? Things like that.
Well, how I like using my CRM, I wish mine was a little bit more robust, but I'll send it out. The only way I can do it is with my CRM system. I have to push, say, my media contacts into MailChimp. I send out a MailChimp, and then if I see reporters that are opening my contacts, I will call them to follow up if I don't hear from them in a certain period of time, and then just to see which ones are engaging and actually reading their email. Or if they open the email and I'm in a rush and I really want specific media outlets, I'll go tackle the ones that haven't opened it yet. I'm like, hey, I just sent you an email. Even if I leave a message, it's it's not spam. Please check your email. I sent it about this time, and this is what it's about, just to follow up. So the metrics are just really important, but this obviously takes it to a whole new level.
Well, and that's where I did have a couple slides here. If we get back to that, to answer the second question, and then we could get to our time limit, and I could show you a couple of ways that I know things work in terms of, to your point, what media outlets haven't published your work.
Mm-hmm.
So what is the second question you had for me?
The second one is, what can you do to improve conversions and find valuable tracking data if we don't have HubSpot? So we've sort of talked that, MailChimp, Constant Contact, you just have to be really good about segmenting your lists, so you feel like you're getting a good measurement on it. The CRM stuff,
true.
yeah.
So within HubSpot, they have a call to action tracking ability, and that really is the piece that gives us kind of the image or the work we're doing, the views we have on it, the clicks, in this case the new SEO in this time period. I've had 22 views of that one specific, we could consider an ad. 9% of those views have clicked on it, so that's a pretty high number. If I wanted to improve it, I'd work against that 9%. And you can see nobody submitted from that form after it. You can do it the cheap man way, which I do a lot for a lot of our clients, and that's doing a combination of creating links through Google. You can use Google URL trackers, and I think you can just Google that. They'll give you custom URLs so that then you can look at what is working. If people are clicking on links, people don't know, but a lot of times my press releases, even though we put at Red Fusion Media or something like that, I'll have linked it to a Google link. It then looks like a Google short link, but I'm really tracking that to look at how many people actually clicked on it. If it was, if I was really lucky and the press enterprise or somebody published it as that link, boy, we're going to get all the traffic from that exact link. And so there's some ways you can do that on the cheap. I also do it in a way where we are pushing people to landing pages a lot. And so if we're able to push people to a landing page, we're going to get good data there too.
And a higher conversion rate, because that's really all they can do. They don't have shiny object syndrome. Well, we're already about 5 minutes over. Is there anything, so we have a little bit more time for questions, is there anything else that you want to sort of show that this can do?
Well, I was going to show two different things that I think might matter to press people, and that's really Google and Google News, and the idea that you have to get found into Google News nowadays. And let me see if I get to the right place. So here are just two screenshots in Google News of things I got onto Google News through our Inland Empire site, and one was for the RAM and one that was for this $150,000 out of San Bernardino. The placement in those is going against, you can see the Press Enterprise, and I think up here is KTIA. Our Google News traffic generates about 28% of our traffic through our Inland Empire site now, and I really work hard to get these things into it, and the way that you have to consider sending out your press nowadays is really important, and you should segment your blast, I'll call it, and that if you need to have stuff put in the Press Enterprise or in the LA Times or something big, I would get that out first to them specifically and exclusively hoping they post it, because their value is going to be much bigger within Google News. My Inland Empire site gets pulled by Google News, which is lucky. I pulled a coup off a couple of years ago and got it to work. But I'm very specific when we send out press releases to make sure that one party, the one I believe is the most important to my target audience, gets it first, and I give them the ability to kind of launch it. Once Google picks it up, they tend to only let the first person to press win. So you should segment your blast or your PR list to the most important to your target market. And then for me personally, I mean, this sends 28% of our traffic to our site at some points.
Wow.
The other thing I kind of wanted to talk just quickly about is social media and how we use it. I showed you I backed off social media for Red Fusion Media, and that's just because it's not working. But for our newsy sort of things, it works very well, but it only works on the share side. And so this was just a post I put up a week or two ago about, I think it's a Boy Scout award, nothing too important about it. It got shared within Facebook 587 times.
Wow.
We, Red Fusion, did not put that into Facebook. I rarely use Facebook to promote stuff if it's not to a friend. And then what really happened to that story is the kind of the piece that I think is important, and that you can see we posted it and it took about 3 days to do anything, and then somebody did something in Facebook and we got that huge shot up. We only got about 330 pages or views of that page, even though we had 587 posts into Facebook. And to your point earlier, a lot of those people stayed in Facebook. They did not come to our site to read that whole thing, even though they were willing to share it. So that's kind of that new, I guess it's positioning of content, that how do you position it within Facebook, that we have to toy with a little bit. I kind of put on this, our highest traffic to our social sites ever, sustained social media traffic, is only about 16%. So even as you're looking at social media for that extra push, we think of it as the last thing we do, and it's that icing on the cake stuff that sometimes, this was a story I didn't have any idea that would work or not work. It just was something about local, a local guy, and it pushed at some point, and it had that quick little up, down, and something to kind of think about as you're putting things into social media and how you use it, so that it is pushed. When it does do well, when I saw this happen initially, I went in and made sure that what we did was a little bit more Facebook optimized. I wouldn't have spent that time had I not seen it pop.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, and I think one of the one reason I've been so passionate about the organizations, the American Advertising Association and the Marketers Association, even Capio, is just that, if PR people don't understand sort of this journey on the back end, sure, we're delivering messages, but what are some of the other opportunities? So, okay, I submit a press release, and if I'm working with my marketing and advertising professionals in-house, what if I can drive them to a lead page that also installs a cookie that can follow them around the web doing impressions on ads on the back end? So there's so many other opportunities that I don't think people even know are available, because even in the advertising realm, it's a little bit more complex. It's more advanced.
Yeah, and the other tiny little piece to this is I think the city of Riverside probably sent this to me, or maybe it was the fire department, but when a specific person sends me a press release, we post it and we get it into Facebook, Twitter, whatever we're doing, I make sure sometimes to give them the exact tweet I put out, or I'll go immediately to them and try to promote their tweets more than I will my own tweets, because it's that little pat on the back that gives them that relationship that matters. And so, that's the other piece, that I don't particularly care if my tweet wins. I care that somebody thinks it's viral enough to pass on. And so I do more liking and forwarding of other people's tweets than I probably would admit, because I think it's them that need that high five or the pat on the back that then kind of drives some of this other stuff too. And then you see who really has a good relationship. And for me, it always goes back to the relationship, not mass media, but very micro media. Are we building a relationship with the PR person at the fire department or at other locations, so that understanding that over time can help everybody out.
Agreed. Well, this is great. I mean, I know these are fast, these are down and dirty, and we're going to get more into detail with Don Carter is coming up next Tuesday at noon, and then after that we've got Mobile Mary showing us behind the scenes of sort of the text marketing, SMS, and then multimedia marketing via text message, MMS. And then on the panel in Temecula on Wednesday the 20th, you guys are all going to be on the panel, and Victoria Brody and I are going to give you a hard time talking about forecasts, continuing the conversation about measurement, like how do we work together as an industry to really maximize those eyeballs. I think last year, I forget the speaker we had, she said, whenever you took a marketing class, a decade ago, you always heard the phrase, it takes 7 impressions before a customer makes a decision or you change somebody's mind. And she said it's 21 now. That's really insane. It is
insane. I've heard like 16, but yeah, it's unbelievable how many messages we see. And I saw a new stat, it was 10 million in a year that the average person sees.
And our time with media is up. I read an article yesterday saying that year over year media consumption is up like a full hour for consumers. So we're consuming more, but there's so much noise, and we've got double screening. People are constantly bombarded and using multiple screens at the same time. So how do you cut through the noise? It's an important conversation. So maybe we have time for a few more questions because I know we're losing some people. Does anybody have any questions while we're still on the phone? I really appreciate your time. This is cool, and I finally got to see behind the scenes of HubSpot. Just curious, what should people expect to pay for something like this?
Across the board, the ranges are kind of in monthly ranges, and I would say at the lowest end of stuff, I mean, there is free stuff. You can actually get the HubSpot CRM for free, which is really targeting sales groups. It's not very useful to anybody outside of sales, but it actually is pretty cool if you're a sales group. Things like lead-in are free. Lead pages or the ClickFunnels tend to be on those monthly, I don't know, $30 to $50 retainers. I still like to use everything free that I can. HubSpot does start at about $200 depending on how big and what assets you have, and it goes up to lots of money. We typically say it's going to be about $1,000 a month if you're really going to use all the pieces. So it requires a company that is probably doing about $2 to $5 million to even think about it, because they really need to have it as part of an actionable item. And as cool as it is, the failure in it is if you're not building content. If you don't build content for it, it really does slow down and fail because you're not doing the thing that it needs. You're not putting gas in that engine. So it's kind of in those ranges, and almost all these products are in the month-to-month, but now they're kind of putting that year retainer on it. So you look at those efforts as being, important to your communication. How much is it? What is it doing? And are you tracking it back to an ROI? And determining that ROI is really kind of the key to deciding to do any of these products, because you have to see if we're actually making a dent in what our goals are. If you're simply doing it for a blasting engine to blast out stuff, it's not going to be cost effective, and you're not going to see much value in it. You really have to think about the return on the visitor. Does he come back? Does he do something?
That's a really good point. It's only as good as the person launching it and actually using it. Okay, well, very good. Well, all right, I don't have any questions, so we went 15 over. I knew we would do it, but we tried.
I know, and we could go another 2 hours if we needed to. So, but I'm
like our
excited
lunch. Whenever you and I go out to lunch, it's always like several hours.
I know, and so it ends at happy hour, right? But yeah, I'm looking forward to the meeting with the group in Temecula, and I think from an AAF perspective, the more people we can get in Temecula linked into the communications world, the better, so I'm excited.
Very cool. All right, so next Tuesday, same time, same place. It's online, but we're going to be live streaming via Facebook for PRSA on our channel with Dawn, and then she's going to be live streaming on Periscope. We are going to do a double live stream and talk about the pros and cons of both. Dawn has been live streaming for a long time, and she does it every day. She's just a social media nut, and I absolutely love her and the work that she's done with nonprofits, and she's just awesome. So we'll see you next Tuesday at noon, and we'll see you next week.